Hey, hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic and that you're all having a great day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Probably going to be a bit of a weird news day. Who knows? Who knows what's coming our way. So it seems like we've almost come full circle in the cryptocurrency space. As you may have noticed, when we have lightly rebounded in price, regardless of any fluctuations that we might be having daily, the topic has once again changed to, instead of being utterly terrified and afraid of everything, where's Bitcoin's price going to go? Where is Ethereum's price going to go? How high will prices be sometime in the near future or even in the far future? You understand what I'm saying. When I say that we've come full circle, it's because I was waiting for one of these to pop up. People, and I mean, this is a more so, I think, a realistic discussion that many people are probably having. And it's the idea of how much Bitcoin do you actually need? And I air quoted there, you can't see me, because the idea is, for those of you who do not know, many predictions are that Bitcoin will not only hit $100,000 per coin, but eventually at some point also go to $500,000 per coin. If Bitcoin goes to $500,000 per coin, Bitcoin at some point will probably also go to $800,000 per coin. If Bitcoin goes by $800,000 per coin, that is the point where it is worth more than gold. It has been predicted that if Bitcoin surpasses the valuation of gold, we will begin to see a gigantic, let me put a pause between some of those words because it sounds completely insane, a dump of Bitcoin, of gold, if you will, simply because people will have lost faith in, I guess, the old system. I don't really know exactly what to kind of put there. We get news like this kind of all the time, and it really bothers me when I won't say the phrase when people don't pay attention, but when people keep pretending like we're not seeing like the world changing right in front of us. We had news in 2019, 20, and 21 that apparently a large number of corporations and hedge funds had begun to sell off their gold or their paper gold or their gold ETFs, whatever words you want to call it. And then we started hearing that a lot of these companies also began to have allocations, spot allocations, in actual physical Bitcoin. And we're also seeing more accumulation with the actual ETFs as well. Dragging it on back because I'm getting a little bit off tangent with my rants. The other part basically means is that if Bitcoin continues rising in price, how much Bitcoin will you need to be, and I say this in this way, comfortable in the future? If Bitcoin is currently 60,000 something or other, and Bitcoin happens to do a 10x in price, if you're holding this amount of Bitcoin and Bitcoin does a 10x in price, then how much money do you have? Is this enough money for you to live off of? I've seen varying degrees of how much money people think that they need to live off of how much money they want to live off of. Personal opinion, tell me if I'm wrong. I believe that not even the average, a normal human being, if you had $1 million, you would probably be just fine for the rest of your life. I know someone shaking their head no, and it's probably because you live in a very expensive place. If you moved to Bali, if you moved to parts of Asia, if you moved to parts of Japan, if you moved to Southern Europe, you would probably make that million go a very long way. But if you live in like New York, LA, London, Miami, it's probably not going to go that far. So the age-old discussion has once again returned, and it's kind of two questions at once. How high can Bitcoin go in price, and how much Bitcoin do you need to be well off depending on where Bitcoin's price actually goes? It says, despite Bitcoin's recent price drops, and I mean depending on the day or the hour that you're looking, hodlers may find comfort in long-term price predictions. The general issue is that most people don't want to wait long-term, and I give you comma. Most times, especially if you look back at the range of movement within the cryptocurrency space and how many coins have moved and how much money people have made, and the amount of time you actually have to put into, like, time and effort into the market, it's roughly around 3 to 4 years. The problemo is that many a time people get into the market in like the last year before the run-up, or like the last couple of months as the run-up is happening, and then they don't get the gains that they want. So this is for those of you who have a long-term perspective on investing and holding crypto. According to one analyst on the Twitter, apparently, allegedly, now this is I believe, an accumulation of everything that we've ever heard. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. According to one analyst on Twitter, 0.1 Bitcoin might be enough for you to retire. Here's one kicker, and then there's another. Might be enough for you to retire in the year 2038. Let me explain. The general consensus right now at the time of me making this video, unless something weird has happened in the last hour and a half or happens 12 hours after I do this, the general consensus is that Bitcoin is going to go over $100,000. Everyone's still here? Lovely. The other consensus is that if we hit 100K, we're probably, this is according to Kathy Woods, Novogratz, Jack Dorsey, Barney, and a whole bunch of other people, that we will probably hit a $1 million Bitcoin after the next halving. That's not to say that we could not do this halving. However, it's the extra added crunch, and also still my prediction thrown inside there that by the end of the year, the ETF issuers are probably going to be holding more than 3 million Bitcoin. As the US dollar continues to devalue, as Bitcoin becomes rarer every single day, and even more rarer every 4 years, as we continue to see the halving take place, people pretending like it's nothing that's actually happening, and then we see massive amounts of accumulation, and then the market ends up going up. The idea is that the next halving, moving into the 2032 halving, that's meant to be, as far as I understand. Why is my phone constantly giving so many all these like weird like spam messages? How do I turn it? My phone's like, it's on the table and it's just like blinking like every couple of seconds, and I keep thinking that someone is texting me. No, it's like, get 10% off. 10% off of what? I don't know what are you selling me? Why does it say 10% off? The general idea is that in 2032, the amount of Bitcoin that actually ends up being mined by the machine is no longer even an entire Bitcoin. It is literally less than an entire Bitcoin. It's just in Satoshis at that point. And therefore, if we are slowly now entering into this world of Bitcoin adoption, hyper-Bitcoinization, that by the time we end up getting to the next halving, that is to say in 4 years from now, basically chaos has ensued. And so you've seen the difference in market dynamics from 2020, 2016, 2012, and even to now. If we're constantly mounting this digital mountain, if you will, and it becomes scarcer, that by the time we get to 2032, all blockchain has broke loose, and basically we are at a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. The other idea is that as Bitcoin years ago was easier to obtain for the everyday average person, it is not so now. We have not yet entered into the world of Veblen, but it is more so. If Bitcoin's at $500, the average Joe can probably buy an entire coin. If Bitcoin's at $5,000, not many people are going to be willing to put 1, 2, or 3 months, if you're lucky, 3 months of their rent into a digital currency that is, just new onto the scene. If Bitcoin goes to 50,000, there's a very particular set of people who are actually going to be able to afford an entire Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes to $500,000, it is basically the 1% of the 1% who have liquid cash to be able to even think about buying that much Bitcoin. Therefore, they put the 0.1 Bitcoin and the time frame for it. If you can't afford an entire Bitcoin, if you've been working towards a tenth of a Bitcoin, and Bitcoin continues further into the future, obviously this time frame gets a lot shorter if you have an entire Bitcoin, if you have a half of a Bitcoin. But as I've stated many other times before, I have desperately tried over the years, and I mean it's been a good decade, just around the decade at this point, trying to get people into this market and trying to get them to buy fragments of Bitcoin. One of the things I tell all my friends and family members, this is not financial advice, it's more familial advice. Please try and buy at least 0.01 Bitcoin. It's more of a, it's a big, coin flip. If Bitcoin succeeds, gosh darn it, you're going to want to have at least some of it. And I tell them to buy it now because if Bitcoin goes to multi-million dollars and you don't have any of it, you sure as heck can't buy fragments of it the way that you would be able to right now. That's always been my philosophy, at least within the space. But there are a lot of people who believe in the $1 million Bitcoin and the multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. You need to understand that a $1 million Bitcoin kind of signifies that the old world is gone. The masses have rushed into our market because of economic problems, uncertainty, what have you, and they're choosing to use Bitcoin and subsequently also the Lightning Network as their way to store value. So if these people end up being correct, as they basically have been the last 12 or 13 years, and this wave that we continue to see continues to wave at us, the ETFs buy more Bitcoin, countries continue to accumulate, people continue to mine more of it, the halvings continue to happen, you get the general idea, Bitcoin will continue moving up in price. The theory is forever. That's a whole different topic that we're not going to really touch on here. The idea is if Bitcoin continues to be scarcer forever until at least the year 2140, and we continue to see the halving every 4 years, and Bitcoin gets adopted, and then there's less and less, and then it becomes this like really gigantic thing that people want to have, and people are striving to even own 500 Satoshis, what have you, that according to the laws of inflation and fiat currencies, as long as more fiat gets printed, more of that money can be pushed into Bitcoin. If more of that can be pushed into Bitcoin, Bitcoin can also add new decimal places, as we've gone over before, if there's network consensus. If you add on more decimal places, the people who are holding Bitcoin have become even more rich than they previously were before. But this also allows for new people to get into the new decimal Satoshis as well. According to the analyst, 0.1 Bitcoin, a tenth of a Bitcoin, might be enough for you to retire in the year 2038. He made these calculations based on certain set parameters that focus on the slow degradation of the US dollar. It says due to central bank manipulation. I think at this point it's just them, they've caught themselves in a loop that they can't really get out of. According to Simply Bitcoin, Considering an annual compound growth rate, CAGR, of 50% per Bitcoin, and an annual US dollar depreciation rate of 12%, Bitcoin will likely be worth tens of millions of dollars by that point. You need to, and I mean as best you possibly can, if you can conceptualize the idea of what a $1 million means for people holding crypto, for people holding Bitcoin, and for people not holding Bitcoin, it is going to be an interesting ride if all of this ends up coming true. A multi-million-dollar Bitcoin implies that the US dollar in some capacity still exists. However, its strength is nearly that of like a grain of sand. It is, you know, there's no bearing on it. It's still held or used in some capacity the same exact way that we see like other hyper depreciated currencies being used. But it means that the world has literally changed. I need you to sit there for a moment and really think about this. If Bitcoin is worth several $million, and this person is saying tens of millions of dollars, those who hold Bitcoin are the wealthiest people on the planet. Those who do not have no chance. I try to, whenever I talk with my friends, whenever we meet up and we're discussing the market, what have you, or we're talking about these things, the gap between the have everythings and have nothings would be tremendous. We are currently, for those of you who don't know, the current wealth gap on the planet is larger than that of the Victorian era. Why, you might ask? Because the people who have money have a lot of money. And the average person, especially these metrics were from, well, the one that I was watching was from the States. They were talking about the average person has debt. So there are people who have $1,000, $5,000, $7,000 of personal debt or credit card debt. But they said the people who have $50,000, $200,000 in debt, they're literally starting in the minus. So you see them in a nice home, they have a nice car, they're going out to nice dinners, but that's all being put on a card. It's all being, so they're literally in the minus, and that will also has increased the gap, because it's not that people are starting at zero. In the Victorian era, you know, the land you lived on was that of the king or the queen. And you had a couple of potatoes, and you had the things that you used to do work and stuff outside, but you had zero. You didn't have minus 200,000. If we get to the point where Bitcoin is worth tens of millions of dollars, what do you think the wealth is of companies who are holding thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin? When you hear me say in a video, I am perfectly fine with the US and Germany selling off their Bitcoin, it's because I want those coins distributed amongst people on the planet. That's the point of Bitcoin. It's not to be held by the already rich. So whenever we keep seeing people talking about a new rich person getting into the market and being like, yeah, and I'm like, no, we don't want that. Like, we actually want the opposite, because what's the point of this market? Can you imagine in 2038 if we get to a situation where there are only 500,000 people, 500,000 who have an entire coin? We just had another news story. This was maybe 3 or 4 days ago. There was another news story that said the amount of addresses, the amount of Bitcoin addresses that are holding an entire coin, it's over 1 million. But when you read through the article, they said that many of these addresses, multiples, are probably belonging to the same person. If you are lucky and sane enough to have 3 Bitcoin, you're probably not going to have all 3 Bitcoin in one address. You have them in 3 different addresses as a gigantic hedge. Because what if Bitcoin ends up going to tens of millions of dollars and you lost all 3 in one place? Well, guess what, buddy? Jack diddly squat. So it's the same exact thing. There are people who have like 3,000 Bitcoin. They don't have it all in one address. They probably have, I'll tell you this. If I had 3,000 Bitcoin, I'd probably I'd have over 50 addresses. Easily over 50 different addresses. The amount of people holding an entire Bitcoin is not 1 million. They're not 1 million people. They're very few people. So whenever we keep seeing these like washouts of people in the market, for those of you who missed, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, there was a metric talking about why Bitcoin recovers or recovered in price, why Bitcoin was going back up. It had to basically do with the amount of people who, when we got all that fearful news, were washed out of the market, sold their coins. These coins were bought up by whales. There's still extra coins on the market that can be purchased on a crypto exchange, but now the price is higher than when those people cashed out. So now, seeing that prices are moving back up, they jump back onto the market and have to buy at a higher price. Because they're buying at a higher price and they're trying to accumulate as much as they had before, they need to buy more. Therefore, the price goes up. It's a constant cycle over and over and over. I am perfectly fine, especially this year, before the next halving, before 2032. Now, if these governments got rid of their coins, because how many more people, like, we need decentralization in the space. We need people around the world to actually have and use these coins. Do you want to live in a world again in 14 years where the rich have 10x their wealth because they're holding all the Bitcoin? Because all the new Bitcoin that gets made is also by the rich people. Any new Bitcoin that enters a crypto exchange is automatically bought up by a buy order. So how do you acquire new Bitcoin? How does the average person, think of this, how would the average person acquire any new Bitcoin in the year 2038? You got to go to work. What happens when jobs start offering their employees, I can pay you in Satoshis if you want? It's the only new way to make Bitcoin. So what happens to the people who are buying Bitcoin now, who are holding the Bitcoin for the long term, and then it gets to tens of millions of dollars per coin? What happens to everyone else? What happens in the year 2050, 2065? How much is a Bitcoin worth? How many people are looking for jobs to be able to make a couple of Satoshis per hour? Think far ahead for this space and how crazy everything is actually going to get. That's why I'm always, the word's not rattled, but when you hear these things about these price predictions, I sit there and I go, things are going to get a little bit insane. No one could have foreseen Bitcoin going to $70,000. And I mean, years ago, it was not a thing. I remember reading articles and it literally, people were like, if we get to 5K, it'll be a miracle. $100,000 Bitcoin is literally right around the corner. $250,000 Bitcoin. But by the time we get to 250, between $500,000 and Bitcoin is worth more than a house, it becomes a very precious object. I don't want to let that go. Bitcoin keeps getting more and more value compared to actual housing. When you own property, you have to look for someone to like live inside the property. You have to hope they don't destroy the property. You have to hope that they pay the rent. You have to hope that they do this on time. You have to hope that this doesn't happen. None of that takes place for Bitcoin. You simply buy and hold the Bitcoin. What happens if we get to a world where these people are worth tens of millions of dollars? What happens to everyone else? I am a huge advocate for spreading around Bitcoin around the world. There's a lot to go around and we don't need rich people to become even richer. Stop clapping when a billionaire enters the room. It's insane. His idea is that The annual growth rate of Bitcoin is around 50%. I assume this is if you pull out the line and kind of look at the entirety as opposed to the dips, kind of year on year, similar to the stock market. People always say year on year the stock market goes up by 7%. That is even with dips, mathematical calculation. And the US dollar continues to depreciate by 12% per year. Bitcoin will likely be worth tens of millions of dollars by that point. So, even with a tenth of a Bitcoin, you will have more than $1 million by that time. And here's the actual chart for it. It says when moon ? And it has, the numbers and all the other valuations are, based off of having, and I wish they had written this differently, based off of having 10 million sats, a tenth of a Bitcoin, having $6,900 worth of Bitcoin, your desired annual income of 100K, your annual US dollar depreciation and Bitcoin appreciation, it would be, that the 12th of the 8th or the 8th of the 12th. Either way, sometime in 2037, your Bitcoin stack will be worth $2.3 million according to their estimates if the US dollar continues to depreciate. Can you imagine? Can you imagine buying a tenth of a Bitcoin and it's worth $2.3 million? For those of you who didn't get it, that's enough money to retire. And I stand by it. I know $1 million is enough. I'm telling you. You can watch all these videos online. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. There's one of this woman, she moved to Italy recently. There's one of this guy, he moved to, I think, somewhere in Thailand. And they're like, I only had 600K and I'm living my absolute best life. You don't need $1 million, you want $1 million. You don't need 5 million, you want 5 million to be able to do extra wonderful, awesome money things out there. Bitcoin then will be worth 2.3 million. Your 6,000 would become 2.3 million. It says your first daily draw. What? And apparently will be worth $1,307.70. Why can't I read these numbers? Anything with a K. Anywho, yeah. The last number that we got before, still don't have a new number, was 0.28. A lot of people have thrown around the idea of 0.01 Bitcoin as well. That's a personal number for me because I need to know that my friends and family have something. I told that to all of you before. Years ago, I was like, how you're watching this channel, getting constant news about Bitcoin, doing this and doing that and being adopted and being bought up every day. And most people in the comment section were like, I don't own any Bitcoin. And I was like, are we on the same planet? Did you not see the same news that I have seen and you have seen over the last 8 years? You just missed every single video that was actually out there. So I don't understand that at all. That 0.01 is based off of the words, not even hyper Bitcoinization. It's the world's economy has collapsization and Bitcoin is the only thing that people are using. That's the Jack Dorsey method. Jack Dorsey, the former head creator, CEO, I don't know, of Twitter, believes that Bitcoin is going to $100 million per coin. He believes that by 2029, less than 5 years, we're going to have a $1 million Bitcoin. He believes that by 2033, I think he said a $3 to $5 million Bitcoin. And then basically from there, Bitcoin's value continues to skyrocket. Yeah. All I can say is, as I've been saying before, I think there are some people out there who need to take time and have a very long discussion with their portfolio. Because I, in the past and even in the present, am constantly shocked at seeing news about something over and over and people don't have it in their portfolio. Listen, maybe making money isn't for everyone. I don't, I've tried for years. I told you, trying to get people into art, trying to get people into crypto. And a lot of people, I think they just don't want to make money. It sounds like a joke. I'm not joking. I've met people before who told me that they don't like the idea of money. They don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want it to be a part of their lives. And I don't know how well they're going to fare in the year 2037, but that's not my problem to actually deal with. I just, I'm their friend, but I can only lead them to the blockchain water, but I can't make them buy. So it might be time for a lot of people out there to reevaluate their portfolios and just, see if you should maybe rebalance it and or prepare differently for the future, because I don't know how anyone has been getting this news daily. This is a daily news channel for those of you who somehow missed the last 3,000 videos. How anyone could hear all of this news and simply go, meh. Anywho, I think that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope that you all had a chance to buy when prices were lower, because I see you. A lot of people keep writing in the comment section, Bitcoin goes up by 8%. No, I wanted it to stay lower. And I'm like, exactly how much lower? We've been together for years. Exactly how low do you want the price to go so that you can keep accumulating? Also, just a reminder, if you have garbage and stuff in your house that you are just not using, no one needs 7 TVs and all the other stuff that many people have around. Don't forget to sell them. Part of that money should be going into an emergency fund, because don't pretend that an emergency won't happen. And also the other half, that's also money that you can use to invest. See? Smart. Do hope you've all enjoyed. Do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.